If you're tired of chicken and cooking up the same old things every night, I've got 5 new cheap and easy recipes for you, and they all start with pork. I'm gonna start with crispy pork tenderloin sandwiches. It's just a great way to get a lot of servings out of 1 pork tenderloin. Then I'm doing some pork tacos with a pineapple salsa, followed by one of my favorite recipes, Lazy Wonton Soup. Then everyone complains about not being able to know how to cook pork chops. I've got oven fried pork chops that are easy and tender. And finally, a very flavorful pork medallions with balsamic vinegar and capers, and that is a restaurant-worthy meal. Let's get started with the crispy pork sandwiches. Pork tenderloin is pretty inexpensive, but what I find oftentimes is they are like buy one, get one free in the grocery store, so I always stock up. They're great to freeze. What you want to do when you get a pork tenderloin is it has this silver skin on it. That is just a little bit tough and hard to chew through. So you want to remove that by taking a knife and just going just below that, one direction, and then take your knife and go the other direction. That's really the only tough part you need to get rid of. And then we're gonna cut it into medallions. Place a piece of plastic on, then you can use a skillet or a mallet and then just kind of pound it thin. Look at the difference. I'm gonna season those. First I'm gonna set up my breading station. I'm gonna do flour, good bit of salt and pepper. Then I'll just add in a little garlic powder and onion powder. All right, and then in the second dish goes your eggs. To that, I'm adding in a little buttermilk and some hot sauce. So far for this, really the only thing I had to buy was the pork. In the third dish, I'm using breadcrumbs. I'm doing the panko breadcrumbs because they just get extra crunchy and crispy. Then I'm gonna season this up with salt, pepper, and a little paprika. All right, then you just take your pork, go from flour to egg, and then into the breadcrumbs. See how substantial that looks? That will fill you up. Y'all know that does not look like it came from one little pork tenderloin. I'm going to shallow fry these in a skillet on the stove because I don't have to mess up my home kitchen. I'm at work. But you can also air fry these. I know you're gonna ask that. You could also bake them in the oven. They're going to be the crispiest in the skillet, but they'll be just as delicious if you wanna use one of the other ways. To me, shallow frying is a lot less intimidating than deep frying. It's just a little oil on the bottom of a pan. And these are so thin, they're not gonna take long to cook at all. They'll probably only take about 3 or 4 minutes. Also, unlike chicken, you don't have to cook this to death. So you don't have to be so stressed about cooking it long enough, you know. Just wait till it's all browned on the outside and you should be good to go. I like to put it on a wire rack so it doesn't sit in the grease, and then it can just drain off while I cook the others. You can then just keep them warm in the oven if you need to, or just serve them up right away. We're gonna finish this and serve them up. So here's how I'm gonna serve it up. I'm just going classic fried chicken sandwich style. Like what you might get at a fast food, but better. Look at that. See that hearty dinner from one little pork tenderloin? And then you can just serve it up with some freezer section specialty. And you can feed your whole family this dinner for about the cost of 1 to 2 meals from the fast food place. You hear that? That is so tender. And this is the perfect dinner. That's probably actually what my family's having tonight. Next up, I'm using ground pork. I think people forget about ground pork because when you're looking to save money, almost a pound and a half for $4.75. Your taco night just got a lot cheaper, you know what I mean? I'm just going in with a little avocado oil and down with my pork. All right, the pork's cooked. I've developed some color along the edges. I'm gonna lift that color up in just a minute. But first I'm gonna season it with just salt and pepper, a little bit of onion powder, chili powder, and cumin. Season it up, and then we're gonna deglaze with a can of Rotel. I love this one with the lime and cilantro for this, but it can be whatever. And the tomatoes are gonna lift up that flavor from the side. And And now I'm gonna also add in some black beans just to bulk this up. And that's pretty much it. This is the base for our tacos. I'm gonna let this stay warm while we make our salsa. Pineapple and pork is a classic combination, so I thought a pineapple salsa would be really good with this. You just wanna chop the rest up. It's already been cored. You could also just use canned pineapple. And then some jalapeno, of course. Take the seeds out or leave them in. This one's really big, so I would say 2 smaller ones or 1 large one. I'm also adding in a red onion. I love the pungency of an onion in a taco. Okay, and then a little cilantro. Another very affordable herb. I always keep some of this and parsley on hand in my kitchen. Just a little fresh lime juice, and we're good to go. Drizzle in a little olive oil, just a little bit. That is gonna be so perfect. My family likes a flour tortilla. I'm gonna toast these up a little bit on the burner, add to that charred, smoky flavor. This is a step I really wouldn't skip. It only takes literal seconds and it adds so much flavor. All right, tortillas, salsa, and the star of the show, the pork. Doesn't have to be complicated, you know? A little of that. So good. That pork has that like really savory kind of smokiness from the chili powder and the cumin. But then when you get that little burst of pineapple and jalapeno, crunchy onion, I mean, you don't need anything else. I'm using ground pork for the next one too. This is one of like the best things I've ever made on the show. It is Lazy Wonton Soup, because the thought of making wontons is so like just intimidating that no one really ever does that. At least no one I know. This is like all the flavors of a delicious wonton, but in an easy soup package. With just over a pound of ground pork, less than $5, $4.68. And we're gonna start by making the flavorful broth. So you're gonna take some green onions. So I'll save those, and then I'm gonna cut these into like 1-inch pieces. We're gonna use the greens later, but we're gonna put the whites in our flavorful broth. I'm gonna thinly slice some garlic and throw that in too. You're just gonna create this very like aromatic, delicious, savory broth. And then ginger, again, fresh ginger is just superior to the dried. This is so inexpensive to buy, and it lasts forever in your fridge, so you can keep some of this on hand. So you just wanna peel it and also thinly slice this. Put that in, and then go in with your chicken broth or stock. 2 quarts, right in. All right, so I'm gonna get this on the stove, add in a couple more things. Some soy sauce, a few tablespoons of that. All right, and then a little rice vinegar, a little bit of brown sugar, and then a little bit of salt. Okay, give that a stir, and we're gonna bring this to a simmer. This is just a great way to jazz up a store-bought chicken stock also. Okay, instead of having to form the wontons, we're basically just gonna form kind of small little meatballs. I'm gonna add in the rest of the green onions. I'm gonna save some for garnish, but put the rest in here with the meat mixture. And then I'm gonna use the rest of that ginger and grate it right in. All right, I'm going in with a little more soy sauce to flavor this up, along with a little bit of sesame oil, and then a couple teaspoons of cornstarch. This is going to like help bind it and hold it all together. And then a little bit of salt. And just mix it all together. All right, so now I'm just going to form this into a bunch of little like 1-inch balls. You want them really small because you want to think about what fits on a soup spoon. I kind of don't want them perfect, actually. Called Lazy Wonton Soup for a reason. I'm just gonna go ahead and prep my other ingredients so that we can just drop it all in. Bok choy. Now this is very inexpensive. It adds just great color, a little bit of crunch, and a lot of nutrition to the soup. It cooks up like spinach in the sense that it just really wilts very easily. Of course, these pieces are gonna stay a little crunchier. The only other thing you're probably gonna have to buy though are the wonton wrappers. So instead of sitting there and rolling each little wonton for the soup, we're just gonna cut these into quarters and drop them right in. Wish you could smell it. It is So good. So this has come to a boil. Now I'm just gonna drop in our little pork dumplings. And then after about 5 minutes, I'll add in the wontons and the bok choy. These do not take long to cook, obviously. They're super tiny. All our little pork dumplings have started to float, so you can pretty much assume they are all done. And I'm gonna add in our final ingredients. I'm gonna drop the dumplings in. The wontons. Those are just gonna act like little noodles in here. I like to add in about half and then give it a stir so they don't all stick together. This whole thing came together in mostly one pot, and it came together in about 30 minutes or less. So not only is it cheap and easy, but it's also quick. It's a triple threat. Just the smell is worth it alone. It is so delicious. Okay, now here's how you can finish it off, if you want to. Take a little chili crunch, drizzle it on. Sprinkle of our green onions, and that's your wonton soup that started with a $5 pack of pork. Oh gosh, that is good. This broth is so flavorful. Y'all need to make this. What I've found is when I'm like craving like that big like kind of hunk of meat, but I don't want to pay for a steak, a pork chop is just a great alternative. You can get these thick, bone-in, center-cut pork chops. They're usually about $3 to $4 a piece, but you want to get them where they're about 1 inch thick, and again with the bone in, they're just going to be better. These could not be any easier, and if I had to guess, the only thing you're going to have to buy for this dish are the pork chops. So I'm going to go eggs in one dish, breadcrumbs in the other. I'm going to whisk it together with a little milk or half and half. For the breadcrumbs, I'm using a mixture of panko and regular to give you that extra crunch. Mix the two together. I'm going to season the pork chops also with just salt and pepper before I dip it in the egg and then in the breadcrumbs. And season the other side. A lot of times my grandmother just used the thin cut pork chops, but I find you have a little more control when you use the thick cut. The recipe calls for like a classic glass baking dish. My pork chops are a little too big. But the recipe calls to have melted butter in the bottom of the dish. So I'm going to place some butter on our baking dish and get that in the oven to melt. And then I'm gonna put the pork chops on the hot pan. That's gonna keep it kind of crispy. All right, then I'm just gonna place the pork chops directly down. And we're gonna cook it at a pretty high temperature, 425 degrees. And we're gonna flip them about after like 10 minutes. See how easy? All right, 10 minutes. Gonna flip. Now that the butter's on the top, this side will get nice and brown. These look so good. They're just a light golden brown, and that's just what's gonna happen in the oven versus, if you deep fry them in the skillet. But they still look crispy fried, and that's what we want. I should probably let this rest, but who's got that kind of time? Look at that. It's still juicy pork in there. Buttery little crispiness on the outside. Get me a little bite. This is an example of a food that is simplicity at its finest. It's just seasoned breadcrumbs, and it lets the pork flavor just kind of shine. Again, cheaper than steak, cheaper than chicken. This is like a meal your family will love. All right, we've made it Monday through Thursday with those first 4 meals. The final is for like fancy dinner Friday, we'll call it. These are pork medallions with balsamic and capers. So I'm just gonna show you how you can make a fancy meal super affordable. I'm taking the pork tenderloin again, like we used earlier, and cutting it into medallions. So you're just gonna cut them into about 1 to 1.5 inch thick pieces. And we're gonna cook this up in a skillet. This meal is really fast. It comes together in like 15 minutes. We're gonna create a little dredge in a bag, and this is gonna help it get really like brown and crispy in the skillet. And then having a little flour on the outside is going to help like thicken our sauce at the end. Mix that up and add in the pork. All right, then we're just gonna take this over to the skillet and brown it up. All right, so you're just gonna get a skillet nice and hot, add in some olive oil, and then I'm gonna add in the pork. You wanna shake off any excess flour. We're just trying to achieve a light crust. I'm gonna go about 2 to 3 minutes on each side. All right, once it's browned on both sides, I'm going in to deglaze the pan with the balsamic vinegar. That's kind of the star of the show here, and some chicken stock. And that's gonna lift up that flavor we've created on the bottom. Use a spoon to loosen up all that flavor. This is creating a delicious sauce. The pork doesn't take long to cook, 10 minutes tops. Transfer my pork to a platter, and then I'm gonna reduce the sauce until it's really thick. I'm gonna go ahead and add in my capers and some lemon zest. As it reduces, it's going to thicken to like a little bit of a syrupy consistency. That's what I'm looking for. See, that's what you want. I'm gonna top it with a little more lemon zest and a sprinkle of fresh parsley. That's like a restaurant quality meal on a budget right there, baby. Not only are these gonna be so tender, but the flavor, just with that concentrated balsamic and chicken stock, it's gonna be your secret weapon recipe right here. The one nobody else would have thought of. Oh. You can cut that with a butter knife. Oh my gosh. I knew it was gonna be good, but I didn't know it was gonna be that good. It definitely needs to be in your rotation, and I give it an easy 12 out of 10. You could drink that juice. I think we knocked it out of the park with these pork recipes, so next time you're in the store, skip the chicken section, head right over to the pork, and thank me later.